There is an old fighting game where you can break your opponent's weapons, chop their hair, or even their head off.
Victorious.
This is WeaponLord. It's a hardcore fighting game, but I'll make it more accessible for you. In this video, we're going to go over how the game plays out, why it is so cool, and what actually held it back. We're gonna start by putting it in perspective to properly understand why it's not that famous, and we're going to end by comparing the two different versions, Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. WeaponLord released in September 1995, and that's a big reason of why it's not that famous. The Sony PlayStation was just releasing that month outside of Japan, also Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo as an arcade port. It is also a very difficult, very sweaty game targeting fighting game fans, but with this video I'm going to make you appreciate it, even if the most combos you've ever done are with a McDonald's menu. So I'm gonna go, speaking of menu, I'm gonna go to the menu, into the menu right here to show you that the story mode is the one you want to play with two sort of secret mechanics I'm going to explain to you. The arcade mode you can kind of skip, even though if you do finish it, it's going to give you a little bit of a backstory about the character you selected. Versus mode is the one I'm going to use for this video because it's just one of me, but I can show you everything with two controllers and tell you why this game is so cool. So let's go over here, and I'm going to pick Davada for important reasons I will explain to you later. And let's kick actually Core's ass. He's the main character in the game. So we need to talk about the stages that you play through while going through the story mode. Here is my favorite. This is the Circle of Horns. This is jen-tai's stage. Jen-tai is the right hand of the villain, Zarek, and she, as the right hand of the villain, is the arena master. This is the arena, and I love it. Look how cool the audience is, looking all possessed, actually having horns, especially over here. This horns in the arena itself. It's also a cool line scrolling effect. That's what this is called, making the the floor look like it's in perspective. These backgrounds were actually done with acrylic paint by artist Glenn Kim. Now, Glenn Kim would go to work under Pixar on all of your favorite Pixar movies the very next year, so that's worth mentioning. You probably want to see some blood at this point, so I'm gonna pull together a bread and butter combo for you guys, just like that. Here's some blood and all this stuff like that. There you go. Okay, moving on, I need to show you the cursed path. The cursed path is this level, and it is the first of two sort of secret mechanics within WeaponLord's story mode. I'm going to explain to you what that means. This is the curse path. This is Bane's stage. Bane is this guy, this huge guy. What the game will do when you play this, it will give you a message hinting at the mechanic, the secret mechanic of this. Bane is the cursed guardian of this path. If you lose on this path, you too will become, in Bane's place, the cursed guardian of this path, cursed to defend it from all the characters in the game. As a matter of fact, if you lose to Bane, you will have to play versus every other character, and this will happen because this game is hard. If you then lose versus every other character in the game, it will throw at you a negative, like black painted sprite version of your own character, and you will get to play a mirror match. Now, if you lose that as well, the game will throw you a sort of a taunt message, but that only seems to happen on the Super Nintendo version, where the game over screen is also a bit different. So that's the curse path. Next, I need to talk to you about the other secret mechanic, which is in the Skull Gods Arena. Once you're done playing through these 5 stages in story mode, you will get to access the final 2 stages, the Demon Arenas. Now, I am not going to show you this because this is simply too metal and sick of a stage. You gotta experience it for yourself one way or the other. I'm not gonna be the one to indulge you in this sacred spoiler. It's too good. This, however, is the Skull Gods Arena. Now, in the story mode, if you lose, you get to continue as many times as you want unless you get killed, because famously this game features fatalities. I'm gonna show them to you in a second. likewise, because that works both ways, this is the stage, the Skull Gods Arena, where you need to fight again every single opponent that you failed to kill yourself. So that means, technically, if you kill everybody, you just skip the Skull Gods Arena. But if you don't, as you will see, you get to play versus them here again. And that is pretty absurdly good and sick. This is another one of those paintings converted to pixel art backgrounds in Photoshop. Also here in the Mega Drive version, we got a little bit of a free raster effect here in the background, like it was kind of free to do. We got animation all over. I'm just in love with this game's presentation. So let me show you some fatalities that you can do in this game, especially as jen-tai, which is the character I warmly recommend you play as for some reasons that I'll explain later. So you can do various kinds of fatalities in this game. One is the one where you just get the gut out of your opponent, the intestines. And the way you get to do that with jen-tai is with this attack right here. That's because she has a spike at the end of her shield, and that will, you know, get the intestines out of your opponent if you kill them like that. Another way you can kill them is with a head cut. That's a move that gets it done with jen-tai. With the second hit of that, you will cut your opponent's head. You will do a decapitation, right? There is also another way, at least, you can kill your opponent with a power ground attack. jen-tai has a kick, but this will explode your opponent's corpse on the ground, right? Another way we can behead an opponent as jen-tai is this. You know, you do this in a particular fashion by holding X or Z, and then you tap up, up, down. All the moves in this game are kind of ridiculous with the inputs, but okay. So let me show you, okay? Okay, I've prepared a situation here. What I didn't tell you is that I'm actually going to attempt to do all of those fatalities together, plus a secret extra one I didn't mention, okay? Wish me luck. Let's hope I do it first try. That's the intestines. That's the head. Secretly, here's the brain, yes! And then the kick pulpified the corpse. First try. Let's go. Okay, so that's the fatalities. That's a little glimpse of them. There's others, you know, really cool ones, but we need to talk about the endings. Once you're done playing the story mode, you'll find that if you're playing on Warlord difficulty, the highest difficulty, that's how you get the best endings. Now, if you do finish the game as every character, any of the characters, in Warlord difficulty, the game will grant you a prize, a reward of a password, but it's just a piece of the password. Now, if you complete the game with every character, you get the full password. You gotta do that on Warlord mode, and then you get to play as Zarek, the final boss, in the story mode. Now, you finish as Zarek on Warlord difficulty, while killing everybody, you can get the super ultra omega giga ending that you can only get that way. However, the coolest, sickest ending in the game, I recommend you go out of your way to at least watch or get yourself, is if you finish the game on Warlord difficulty as core, fulfilling another certain aspect of the game where if you kill everybody, you'll get it. But I don't want to say who in particular you must kill, okay? So that does it for the endings in the game. Now, we need to talk about, we just need to talk about the sprites and how cool this game is. Why is this game cool? Now, I don't think I need to say much here, because I think pixel art and in general the presentation of this game speaks for itself, but this is an just extraordinarily presented game, well-presented game, and it's really, really Conan-inspired. Here, the main character, Core, is obviously modeled after Arnold in the Conan movie. You can just see the pectorals and the way he will use his sword with one hand most of the time and stuff like that. It's just like that. Also, Devada reminds me of Valeria from the first Conan movie, when they paint themselves with these black streaks to infiltrate the temple at night to rescue the princess. Animation-wise, this game gets a little bit of a critique because some animations can be seen or perceived as a bit choppy. However, if you go to like Spriter's resource, the website, to look at the ripped sprite sheets, you understand that the way these, relatively speaking to stuff like Street Fighter 2, few characters are animated and presented, it is out of this world. Also, shout outs to Spriter's Resource, the perverts, for only making sheets of the female characters. So I think, frankly, the animations and their keyframes are just exceptional. Now, I mentioned combos before. I cannot do any as core. I've shown you a bread and butter one as jen-tai before. You can do a way longer one as jen-tai, like 11 hits. There's some combos out there, but this is not the purpose of this video. This is not a show-off hardcore combo exhibition video, whatever. There's many of those online that are extremely cool. I need to get you to appreciate the game more or know more about it. That is my intent. Personally, I found that getting into the versus mode, which you can use as a practice mode with 2 controllers, as jen-tai, and coming up with my own combos was the most exhilarating, satisfying experience combo-wise I had in a 16-bit RPG. The combos really chain together naturally really well, and you can really get some fun, satisfying ones out there. I like the one that ends with a throw, because otherwise throws in this game are blockable, and that's not just the coolest thing. Fatalities-wise, you've seen all except the one where you get the flesh ripped out of the skull. You can do that with Talasia and Zarek. And then Zarek has its own special one where he will turn you into a cocoon with his spiderweb and then chop you in half. That's Zarek's own, and only he can do that.
Zarek is victorious.
Now, this game does have a weapon break system, though the game was just pretty much designed around this weapon clash system in the first place. Let's see if I can get one going real quick here, maybe like so. Weapon clash, that's a weapon clash, you see? It's nice sound and all of that. Now, if you fulfill some requirements with you use like a weapon breaking move, again, not gonna go into details, you can break your opponent's blade, you know, which can be really obvious. In the case of Core, his blade's gonna be chopped about here, and then he gets less range and less power. And then if you're playing as Bane, actually got your big rock hammer, your weapon cannot be broken at all. Not only can you break the weapons of your opponent, but you can also cut their hair off. Just like you can chop their head off, you can chop their hair off if you hit them in a specific frame of their swing animation. That will happen, although it is purely aesthetical. It is extremely, extremely cool. Now, finally, I want to talk about the AI. The AI, as you play versus the enemy, the AI opponents are extremely fair. I never felt like the AI was reading my inputs. As brutal, as difficult as this game is to excel and prevail versus the artificial intelligence, the AI, I never felt like I was playing Mortal Kombat in the arcade and I was getting input read all the time. It was just really pleasant after all. However, nitpicking and talking about analysis and criticism for this game, I do have to say the AI is extremely easy to cheese, and that's a big reason why I suggest playing as jen-tai. It is simply harder to find out how to consistently cheese the AI as jen-tai, but you know, otherwise, if you play like as Bane or especially as Devada, when you play as Devada, all you need to do versus the AI is this move. You just spam this move the entire time with the green orb on the ground, and you will never die, and you will beat the game on Warlord difficulty, and you will kill everybody, including the final boss. It's that easy. Everybody kind of has those moves a little bit. I would say Devada and Bane are easier to cheese as. jen-tai and Zorn are harder to cheese as, and jen-tai is all in all, in my opinion, more fun to enjoy and appreciate this game in the best way possible. Let me go over the secrets that this game has that are worth mentioning and might elude you even with just a superficial research into this. The special thanks are hidden in the game. You need to input a secret password and then beat the game. So you can combine another password to get to the last stage first. And they're really like verbose, fleshed out thank you notes. Kind of feels like reading a 90s metal album booklet where everybody's thanking their mom or whatever, but I found it really cool. There's also a secret password that gives you the opportunity to play with a knockdown mode. Think about the Street Fighter 2 stun effect where you got your birds flying over your head. That's exactly what it is. Plus, thanks to Brian Schmidt's sound engine for the Genesis, it sounds like this on the Mega Drive. It just sounds straight out of Krugel. I love it. So, if you don't mind, now I will give you some rapid-fire lore facts. Let me know if you enjoy that. We need to mention James Goddard, one of the main designers for this game and the main man behind it. Is mostly known for his early work with Capcom and designing the character of DJ for Street Fighter 2. Personally, I really want to play the Buffy game on the Xbox, which he worked on, because that game looks amazing, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game. David Winstead also worked on that game. Like, he's another one of the WeaponLord designers, so much so that Devada is called Devada because if you remember the A, it's just David, reverse, yeah. This game was big into online play. It was really designed to have online mode. You know, the way you do thrust parries in this. There's no startup frame. That's another thing I didn't talk about. There's no startup frame, just instant because it needed to account for brutal ping, lag, delay at the time for playing like East Coast, West Coast, United States or whatever. So this does have a thrust parry system that kind of works like it would later in Soul Calibur, which is published, which is developed by Namco. I'm sorry, WeaponLord here is published by Namco as well. It kind of works like this, right? You can interrupt frenzies like that, and the heavier your opponent's attack is, the more recoil that will suffer after your thrust parry, right? So there's that, there's the weapon clash and other stuff that personally, myself, as a non-hardcore fighting game, but just a video game enjoyer, I didn't find playing a big part versus the AI, okay? But if you were to play this hardcore versus a human opponent, it probably would now, wouldn't it? The move inputs are another thing that we need to talk about a little bit. Like that orb move to do is like you hold Y or Z and then you go from up to down. And that's like how a regular move is done in this game. It's just crazy. Admittedly, James Goddard said that it just over-designed this game and these moves were just so that the game could be more separated from Street Fighter 2. But yeah, all I can say though is once you've been playing it for a while, it's fine. I can pull the moves off without it being too annoying. Let me get back on track with the lore. We're talking about online play. This was the only game with the X-Band logo on the cover. Now, X-Band was a device through which you could play games online for your Super Nintendo and Mega Drive, and this was a big deal for WeaponLord, even though admittedly, because of a Sega cartridge shortage of 24 megabits, I think 24 megabits. This was a 24 megabits cartridge, which is absurd. The game was supposed to ship 700,000 cards by July. In July, it was supposed to release in July 95, but because of Sega's shortage of those cartridges, it had to be postponed to September 95, which didn't help with, you know, the release because, again, PlayStation and Killer Instinct came out on that month. There was also going to be an orc character, didn't make the cut. I'm happy it didn't. Frankly, all the characters are human, and, you know, having a monster in there would kind of not have the nice Conan sword and sorcery mood as much, personally. It was also going to have a training mode with like 20 tutorials, because again, the game has all of these cool features, but they had to cut that as well. Now, as promised, I'm going to boot up the Super Nintendo version and give you a little bit of a sweet comparison. And here is the Super Nintendo version. Now, the Super Nintendo version is bound to have more color, cleaner voice samples, as we will see more voice samples, and just about a completely different sound, right? For better or worse, personally, I prefer the Mega Drive version of WeaponLord mainly for the sound, because both versions have sound design, sound effects, and soundtrack by Brian Schmidt. But Brian Schmidt, I'm gonna explain who he is, happens to have his own sound engine for the Mega Drive, with which he made like Crewball and other stuff, and that sounds so gritty and just about perfect, in my opinion, for WeaponLord. Brian Schmidt is a old school arcade composer that worked on like many pinball machines, including Black Knight 2000, which is the pinball machine that prompted James Goddard to hire him in particular. Now, you do get some transparencies, like with jen-tai's Blade Swing. You have these transparencies. These are natural to do on the Super Nintendo. You can't have those as easily on the Mega Drive. What else? More color, we mentioned that. The soundtrack is also different. Like some tracks, not this one, some tracks are just completely different between the two versions. Transparencies, color, the button scheme is to be mentioned. The Super Nintendo controller is gonna have you using the shoulder buttons to actually make use of 6 buttons. So I prefer the Mega Drive, of course, for that as well. Jen-tai seems to have been rebalanced. The shield poke takes forever on the Super Nintendo to do that. The Super Nintendo is, of course, the original version, and then during development, they had I think it was the Finnish guy to port it over to the Genesis. What else? The Super Nintendo is letterboxed because of lower processing power. The Mega Drive version is a bit faster, and on the Super Nintendo you need to have all of these black boxes. The game over screen, as we mentioned, is different, and there are indeed more voice samples, such as...
Anura!
Jen-tai wins.
That sound, that voice sample is not on the Mega Drive version, but ultimately it doesn't matter which version you play, both are great. WeaponLord is definitely a game that was way too ahead of its time, and a game that didn't really get the exposure it maybe deserved. But it's not like it's an underrated game. People remember it very fondly. If this video made you appreciate it a bit more, but most importantly, see that it can be an accessible video game for you to enjoy or know more about, in spite of its extremely high difficulty, then my job here is done. Keep loving games. Ciao.